There are many stories about Orion, the hunter from Greek and Roman mythology. In one of the stories, Orion bragged that he was such a good hunter he could hunt down every animal on Earth if he wanted to. This angered Gaia, the goddess of the Earth, who sent a scorpion after Orion to kill him. Now he was saved just in time by the healer, Ophiuchus. And appropriately, Scorpius, the scorpion, is found in the sky, but because it's mortal enemy of Orion, Scorpius is as far away from Orion as possible in the sky. So if we want to find Scorpius, we'll have to go to looking at the morning sky rather than the evening sky that we're currently seeing. It's when Orion sets to the west that we'll start to have Scorpius rise to the east on the other side of the sky. The bright red star moving across the bottom is in Scorpius, called Antares. So we're still looking at the sky from Georgia to the south. This time it's just before 6 a.m. on the morning of April 4th. And in order to find Scorpius, we need to look a little bit further down from where we're viewing now. So let's move our sky slightly. And here we can see a large hook shape just at the bottom of your screen. That is the constellation Scorpius, the scorpion. I'll put up an outline and a picture so that we can see it better. And actually right above Scorpius, stepping on the scorpion, is a large circular shape of stars that is the body of Ophiuchus, the healer, defeating Scorpius to save Orion. There are other cultures around the world that had their own constellations. For people who lived in ancient Greece, the stars of Scorpius form a scorpion. But for people who lived in the Pacific Ocean, in Polynesia and Hawaii, the stars that form that hook shape were a fish hook. Not just any fish hook, a magical fish hook, owned by the demigod Maui. It was said he would use the hook to pull islands up out of the ocean. If we look east of Scorpius, so more to the left side of your screen, we will see three very bright dots. To the east, just before sunrise, we have a few planets that are out. Pretty close near each other in the sky, we find Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. And Mars will be the very red planet that you see there, named for the Roman god of war. Now, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter won't always be in these spots. The planets all move around in the sky, and we find them in different places from month to month and year to year, because the planets are all going around the sun just like we do. But we're going to take a closer look at Mars here, but we're not going to zoom in on it like we did for the nebulas. We're going to fly out to Mars, take a trip through space to see the red planet closer up. In order to fly out to Mars, it's going to get dark for a moment. We're going to be lifting off of Earth still to fly to Mars. So first we'll bring up our view from North Georgia. It is on a different night here, so Mars is in a little different spot. It's under that square, now circle. We're going to lift up off the Earth and fly out to Mars, traveling over 140 million miles through space to reach our neighboring planet. You will see two of Mars's moons. It's two only moons, Phobos and Deimos, splitting off here. And now we can see the red planet much closer up. It is smaller than Earth, only about half as wide. And if you stood on the surface, you'd feel about 60 to 70, somewhere in there, percent of the gravity that we feel here on Earth, so you would weigh less on Mars. And it's called the red planet because the rocks on Mars have a lot of iron in them. It's kind of like Mars has rusted. The dust and rocks on Mars have a lot of iron oxides in them. We've sent a lot of spacecraft to Mars. We have orbiters that have flown around it, landers touching down on the surface, and rovers that drive around on the surface. There's a new rover being sent by NASA. It's going to launch in July of this year and land next February 2021. It's going to be called Perseverance. And Perseverance is going to touch down in a spot on Mars that's actually in front of us now. It's a crater called Jezero Crater. It's at the edge of that dark patch that we see there on Mars. Now, it's going to be looking for past signs of water and life on Mars. And there's a current rover on Mars still going called Curiosity. Curiosity's been looking for past evidence of water on Mars as well, but in a spot called Gale Crater. Been going strong since 2012. Let's go fly over to see where Gale Crater is on a different side of Mars. Here we see a view of Gale Crater in the center of our screen there. Now, Gale Crater was once, we think, an ancient lake. So basically, water would have filled in this crater. We see evidence of channels carved around the edges, and that would have brought in sediment that actually built up a mountain peak that's at the center called Mount Sharp. Let's take a closer look at Mount Sharp, land a little closer to Gale Crater. So here we can see the peak of Mount Sharp, and Curiosity has been exploring Mount Sharp and the Gale Crater area and looking for evidence of that past water. It has geologic instruments on it so that it can analyze minerals, and it's found clays that only form in the presence of liquid water all around the area here. Let's take a look at a photo that Curiosity took just at the end of last year of a place that it recently explored. This selfie that we see here is showing us the Curiosity rover. I'll move the screen a bit so we can see more of the rover there. Now, what we're seeing in the background is the edge of the crater and a little bit of Mount Sharp on the far right side there. Now, the mountain is actually very tall. From the top of the mountain down to the floor of the crater is over 3 times deeper than the Grand Canyon. We're able to see the entire rover, Curiosity, here in this sort of selfie shot because this picture is actually a mosaic of many pictures stitched together where they can kind of edit out the robotic arm that's holding up the camera. You will see 2 small holes. They're labeled Glen Etive 1 and 2. This area is called the Glen Etive area, and those holes are where Curiosity digs out rock, powderizes it, puts it into internal instruments that analyze it so that we can look for those clays, that evidence of past water. And it's also looking at salts. Salts can tell us how the water might have dried out over time. We see tons of evidence that Mars had past liquid water, possibly even an ocean that covered much of the planet's surface. But today, Mars is very dry, and there must have been a history of that water existing and then drying out that we're still in the process of studying.